Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for checking out this video. I hope you're having a fantastic day. As always, shout out to the 9 team. Folks, we got to talk a little bit about something that's just the timing of this makes it so much more um, dramatic, I guess, so much more of a big deal than it might otherwise have been. And that is the fact that the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement between the league and players is expiring. The opt-out date is November 1st. Yes, a little over 2 weeks away from the time I'm recording this. And it just so happens to be coming after Caitlin Clark's rookie year, which, as we all know, completely changed everything for and about the WNBA. Record attendance ratings, record TV ratings. I mean, let's face it, it's probably not something you can track, but I would say record media coverage and social media conversations and so on and so forth completely changed everything. Took a league that no one was paying attention to, no one was talking about, no one was watching, and it's the forefront of almost every sport, if not cultural conversation around what is going on with Caitlin Clark and how the leagues handle things and the fan bases and on and on. And it just so happens, as you can see here, WNBA and Players Union closing in on opt-out date for current collective bargaining agreement. And of course, and again, November 1st, like I said, that is when the opt-out deadline is. And of course, it also happens at the same time where we just got the WNBA signing their historic 11-year media rights deal, which had Disney, Amazon Prime, NBC, about 200 million a year. However, there was another piece to that after, which I believe was with Amazon Prime. I'm going off of memory on this now. I did a video on it a while ago, but ultimately I believe that 200 million a year is probably going to be about 250, 260 million dollars a year, which I believe the current agreement, which expires next year, is around 50, maybe 60 million. So it's a huge, huge change. We've already had charter flights were implemented this year, which of course was solely because of Caitlin Clark. There was no Me Too with the charter flights. It was a Caitlin Clark thing that got all of these other players in the league to get charter flights. Brianna Stewart, who is the vice president of the Players Union, and she said she's been talking about it's been tough for her to stay on track everything and make all the meetings because she's still playing in the finals. Game 3 is coming up, and she's talked about, but there have been conversations about what they want to do, about what they're looking for, going into a new collective bargaining agreement if they do opt out. The current actually is set to expire in 2027. And it will still be in effect this coming season, just like this coming season will be the last year of the current media rights deal as well. Then the new one kicks in the next year. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with all these incredible changes just in this past, what, 7 months, 8 months, really, when you think about it, with Caitlin Clark coming from college, getting drafted in April, going into her rookie year, and everything that's going along with the WNBA. And to be fair, and I haven't had a chance to do a video on that yet, but ratings for game 2 of the WNBA finals were absolutely huge. I think it's like absolutely huge for the WNBA, not absolutely huge for the WNBA with Caitlin Clark participating. And that's not a knock. It's just, that is what it is. But I think it was like 1.3 something million, whereas Caitlin Clark's 2 playoff games were 1.8 million against the NFL and 2.54 million for a second game. But still, huge, huge increase, obviously, over last year. So now we've got to have collective bargaining agreement negotiations. So that's going to be interesting. As the commissioner says here, there's virtually not a sporting event you can turn on where one of our players is not in an ad spot. That was not happening 5 years ago. Look at Aaliyah Boston and Sabrina Ionescu and Asia Wilson and so many of our players in these ad spots. I think that's a good sign, too, as we think about the future of this game and the future of the agreement, between the Players Association and the owners. And just side note here, by the way, that is also, whether they want to admit it or not, because of Caitlin Clark. Now, Stewart talked about a few things they'd like to see in the CBA: pensions, better childcare benefits, increased salaries, of course, um, and the charter system the league has put into place this year actually be put in writing, because again, that was something that got added early on in the season. It's not part of the CBA. They'd like to see that in there. It's going to be interesting what the players see as their value, because I have a feeling they're going to see themselves as more valuable than they actually are. And so that's going to be a huge sticking point. That is going to be a huge sticking point. I think they're going to get a little greedy. They're going to overvalue themselves. And look, greed does not matter if you don't have something people are willing to pay for. You could be the greediest person in the world. If you don't offer something that they feel they are getting value for in order to give you money for that, it's not going to happen. And you also have the sticking point of the fact that investors like the NBA being an owner of the league, it makes things more difficult. Let me put it that way. And in fact, the WNBA media rights deal is actually part of the NBA media rights deal. What would it be on its own if the WNBA had a separate media rights deal? Again, this is a league that loses 10 million plus per year, but keeps going because the NBA keeps just putting money in the furnace, burning cash in order to keep the league alive. And I don't think the players truly understand that. I don't think they really get that part of the deal. They've been protected from the realities of the marketplace, and the marketplace has rejected them for almost 3 decades. Now, with Caitlin Clark in the league, and maybe you see players coming after her that are playing a different style, that may change. But again, they've gotten to this point solely because the NBA has putting money into the WNBA furnace. The estimate of this year they're going to lose $50 million. And I'm sure the charter flight is probably a huge part of that. Because again, the media rights deals doesn't kick in until 2026, I believe. So the players are talking about, and I want to get it to this next one, because here's someone who said that there could be a lockout in the offseason. If a lockout draws on, for those of you who've been around, the NFL enough and Major League Baseball enough, and you know what lockouts do, and even those huge leagues suffered for at least a while. I don't know that the WNBA could survive a prolonged lockout. If they have a lockout that goes into the season and the players don't play, that could make things very, very interesting. And like I said about the whole kind of perfect storm, like I said about the drama of this, if there was no Caitlin Clark, none of us would even know that the CBA for the WM players was expiring, right? Because no one would be talking about it. So the players are actually, they're very lucky to have this season with Caitlin Clark. However, they have to be very careful that they don't overvalue what all of them bring to the league when it's so Caitlin Clark dependent. And so is the WNBA going to make the concessions that the players want? Where will they draw the line, and what will the players accept? Like, that's why, again, are they going to overvalue themselves? Obviously, they're looking for pay increases, which makes sense. But from what I'm seeing and what I'm seeing here, they're talking about really, really big ones. And I believe this is Joe Pompliano who is saying this. I feel like we're quickly headed to a scenario where there's going to be a lockout in the WNBA. I think the players just have a much higher perception around their dollar value worth than the league is actually worth. If you look at the WNBA, attendance, viewership, merchandise sales, everything is up. They're making a lot more money, TV rights, everything. But most don't understand the dynamic of the NBA owning a large chunk of the business. The owners on a large chunk of the revenue stream. Aaliyah Boston said she wants commas in her paycheck. $1 million plus essentially, and that's not happening anytime soon in the WNBA. Asia Wilson makes 200,000 a year. I saw someone where she makes 250, 240, something like that, but go with 200. So we're going to get a point where this sets in as reality, and they're talking about pay increases of 5 times or so, where they've all talked about wanting $1 million player. This league is losing $10 million a year, where the players max out around $250,000, right? I think is that the max or the super max contract? The rookies. I think, what did Caitlin Clark make, 76,000 and change this year? And as Joe continues, I think the players are going to have a really hard time dealing with that because they're going on the road and seeing these sold out arenas. The economics of the league just don't give that opportunity to them. So, as he says here, the question is going to be whether the players understand the finances of the situation, or are they going to stick with their perception of their value to the league. And that is where we could have a lockout. And if we have a lockout and it's prolonged, that could be disastrous for the WNBA. The players, too many of these players, and I go back to what I said about the NBA, because they've been protected by the realities of competing in a marketplace, they don't understand the numbers. They don't understand the reality, and they feel entitled. They feel because they work hard at playing basketball that means they deserve and are entitled to certain things. It doesn't work that way. It only seems like it for them because the NBA has kept them in business. If the NBA didn't keep them in business, they would have been out of here before the year 2000. No one would ever be talking about the WNBA. It'd be something that happened 20 years ago. So if they look at it from the perception of what I've seen from a lot of players, what I've seen from like Kelsey Plum talking about wanting to, a 50-50 share of revenue like the NBA gets, they're in for a rude awakening. And if they don't understand that, there will be a lockout. And who knows what happens after that? Because again, this is a league losing millions of dollars a year. This is not the NBA. This is not Major League Baseball. Certainly not the NFL. I don't know how long that lasts. So that's going to be really interesting. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about what they're going to demand in the new CBA? Do you think there's a possibility for a lockout? Let me know your thoughts. Thanks so much for checking this out. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help out a lot, and I will talk to you later.